So this is our first video I'm going to make with Irina. We met 2 days ago and she gave me the impulse to start another channel only in English, talking about healthy through knowledge and why we believe that healthy through knowledge is the ultimate health guide and nobody can fail. That's the truth if you follow healthy through knowledge. We will see how we came to that conclusion. We have been doing that for many years. It started all when we moved from Switzerland to Uganda, and we noticed how people's health changed when they changed their food. Headaches disappeared, rheumatism disappeared, and many other issues. So because of this, I did a lot of research about the effects on our health by various foods. So I told her some of these informations, and what did you think when you heard that for the first time?
I was so surprised. Whatever you told me that time, it took me by surprise. I'm like, okay, with these 27 years of my life, I was still so much ignorant about the various kinds of food and what effect they can have on my body. I've never taken concern to think about what I'm eating. What is it going to do to my body? Of course, I know different foods have been affecting me, but it's something I've not been giving attention. So when you told me that day, it's just been 2 days, but when I'm putting something in my mouth, I'm like, okay, what am I eating? How is it affecting? Still so ignorantly, but at least I have a conscience.
Yes.
And I ask myself about that.
Yes.
So at least that triggered change in me. That is the beginning of change.
So that's a very important and good point you made. People are completely unaware what they do to themselves when they eat the wrong food. And the impact of the wrong food can be, in very many cases, very dramatic. You can create serious headaches, joint pain, bronchitis, arthritis, arthrosis, joint degeneration in general. Many issues like this, and you could not even think about it, but even you can eat yourself depression, emotional instability. So I gave you an article today, a study they made in Uganda. Can you cite some of that study?
The study, it was about cassava. Oh my God, I was still taken by surprise. Every time I'm talking to him, I just get to discover new things. So this morning, he shared with me an article about the research they did about cassava. It was found that it causes brain injury. And, okay.
They call it brain damage.
Brain damage. And yet, most of Ugandans use that.
Very many.
And Uganda is ranked, according to that research, it is in the 6th position.
Yes, correct.
In the cassava
worldwide,
growers
yeah.
worldwide. And so you can see the effects that people are calling to themselves without knowing.
Let us read a bit out of this that you can understand what we are talking about, the impact it has on the individual, but also on society. Now we have to understand that cassava belongs to the nightshady plant family. We just checked this morning about belladonna, which is the most poisonous plant as it looks like on this planet. It can easily kill you even though you take only 10-15 berries. They are tiny small berries but very toxic, and all of these plants, cassava, belladonna, potatoes, tomatoes, all peppers, eggplants, all of them belong to that family. But we have to say that not all are on the same very destructive level like cassava or potatoes. A tomato is not as bad as a potato. An eggplant is not as bad as a cassava. But an eggplant can already bring you into the hospital. No over-exaggeration. It can bring you into the hospital. You don't know why you go to the hospital, but you will be in the hospital. So what do they say about cassava here? A new study reveals that eating cassava may cause brain damage and nervous system disorder. Now, what is very important here, most sub-Saharan African countries, people need sticks to walk because of neurological damage from the very food that keeps them from starvation. So they eat these toxic plants because they believe it's in their head there's nothing else to eat, which is not true, for sure not true. Toxins in the cassava tuber can cause sudden, and now listen very carefully, irreversible paralysis, and researchers have learned also undermine cognitive ability even without overt physical symptoms. This is very interesting because it tells you that guy eating cassava, he might think nothing is wrong with me because he doesn't notice anything, but he still has a problem in recognizing things, and he has a problem to study. This is what comes next. People cannot enter higher education because they lack that ability to study properly because of the damage caused by their food. Read this here, this problem. Very important what comes next.
Oh my God. This problem has widespread public health implications because cassava, also known as yuca, manioc, and tapioca, is a dietary staple for more than 600 million people globally. And it contains as a chemical defense against herbivores and insects is normally removed by processing through soaking, peeling, and drying.
Stop here. That is very important because that's a very misleading information here. I know that because I have a lot of clients who report back to me. Even if you boil it or you put it, you soak it, and you believe that the chemical has disappeared, the effect is still there. I know that from people who did that thing with, for example, green beans. They believed because I cooked it, I will not have the damaging effect. This is completely false. You might not find the chemical because it has been transferred into another substance, but the damaging is still there. I could show you an interesting thing about that. They made a microscopic analysis of milk, organic milk, conventional milk, and chemically you cannot see the difference. It contains the same protein, the same fat, everything is the same, but the microscopic image shows you a different picture. It is something different. And the same applies for this. I am very sure about that. You will still be harmed by this being. And I want us to understand these are all beings, yeah? Some of them are less harmful, some of them are very harmful, and some of them are very beneficial for our health. So the key here is to know what is beneficial and what is more harmful.
So I have a question. So with some of these toxic foods, so not even a process of preparation can rectify, or are there some foods that when you prepare it this way, you do away with the dangers?
According to what I experienced through communication with my clients, you cannot avoid the damage. Listen to this. It's really scary stuff here. These results suggest that even without physical manifestation from cassava toxins, some children suffer damage, and the overall burden of cassava-related brain impact may have been underestimated. So now think about that for just a few seconds. People eat something, they don't realize it, that they harm themselves, and that goes on for generations and generations, and the cognitive ability will deteriorate. As we can, by the way, see in Europe, the IQ of Europeans is reducing instead of increasing. That might be because of a lot of Irish potatoes. We eat a lot. So that has not been there up to the late 19th century. Most of the European countries refused to eat Irish potatoes because they felt intoxicated. So they say that that's a reason why in these countries very few people can reach a higher level of education. That's one of the reasons. Think about that. So this plant, as we mentioned earlier, falls into the same category as potatoes, tomatoes, pepper, eggplants, and as I said, not all of them are as bad as cassava or potatoes, but all of them have a damaging effect. I want to say this, there are some differences, specifically those which are a bit bigger, like tomatillo is a tree-like plant, also a nightshady plant, but it's not dangerous to eat. And I think, but this is another video, it's because of it's like a tree. It's a bigger plant than these bush-like plants here. Let me finish this cassava topic here with this sentence here. The team enrolled preteens from villages with and without konzo. That disease is called konzo in Congo. And gave them standard cognitive and motor that means movement efficiency tests, proficiency tests. All children in Konzo harboring villages, even without physical symptoms, showed poorer memory than children from Konzo-free villages. Those in Konzo villages additionally lacked in visual, spatial aptitude and mental processing. That's massive, yeah? Now people...
I think they have it like on a daily breakfast, lunch, supper. That's the only food they have.
That seems to be the case, yes.
So how immediate are these effects of these toxic foods in our bodies?
According to what we have seen over the last 10 years, the effects can be instant. That means within minutes you feel like if you have completely fallen sick. We have even had cases where people were rushed to the hospital, emergency unit, because they combined, for example, cabbage with potato and eventually pork. And then if you're unlucky, you will end up in hospital. And the doctor might even tell you,
not see anything.
Exactly, you have nothing, or he will give you the malaria card. So that is very likely to happen here in Uganda. The tricky thing is that not everybody reacts as the other person. That's a bit tricky. And in some cases, like Irish potatoes or potatoes in general, you can see a delayed effect of 1 day, 1.5, 2 days. That's also very interesting. And this is, then it gets harder to trace it back to the root cause of the issue. So, but in very many cases, you can see a change, even minutes after eating, something happened. You are not as well off as you were before.
You start feeling uncomfortable.
Yes.
Okay. So besides cassava, what are some of the common foods and their effects? And some of these foods probably are recommended, do this, eat this, eat this. So what are those foods, that have a contradiction around them? They are highly recommended, and yet they are toxic too.
One of the worst foods you can eat, onions. Tell us your story, please.
They are a victim. So with onions, I've been eating them a lot, but the people around me, after eating them, for some time you start getting a bad smell. I don't know if it's the right word I've used. Yeah, because my mom has complained several times. Every time I take onions and garlic, she complains, but why do you eat those things? No, you smell bad for us. You don't even deserve to be with us.
Oh, wow.
After eating those things, isolate yourself and be alone for some day, which is quite impossible.
This alone should make us think, but nobody seems to think about it. How did you feel after eating? How did you feel? Did you have headache? Did you feel tired?
Sometimes I just get a heartburn. Is it called a chest burn or heartburn?
Okay, that's also good. Now, onions cause, besides many other things, high blood pressure, blood circulation problems. Then they cause cold symptoms, that you feel you have a flu, but you don't have a flu. It's just because you know that.
Yes, that has
Okay.
Nothing, to
So
be
it's
honest.
not a flu, not a real flu, which is caused eventually by some bacteria, but it's a side effect of the onions. Then it causes nervousness, metabolic disorders. It weakens the kidneys, the muscles, the teeth, bones and ears. Then cauliflowers, which is quite popular here in Uganda, surprisingly. What's your experience with cauliflower?
I love cabbages a lot, and I eat them sometimes in plenty. Even whether I take much or less, I always get my stomach bloated. So I always complain about it. Oh, cabbages bloat my stomach. But anyway, I love taking them.
So cauliflower or cabbages, they cause circulatory disorders, cold symptoms, flu-like symptoms, osteoarthritis, dizziness, aggression, dissatisfaction, digestive problems, water retention, brain weakness, metabolic disorders, and it weakens the muscles, the hair, the connective tissue, teeth, eyes, ears and glands. So we could go on like this. We have a list where we list the food or the plants according to their energy value. We are going to talk about that in another video, and we leave you with that, but we recommend you to do the following. Leave out for a week the following foods or drinks. Do not drink coffee at all. Don't take onions, don't take garlic, do not take potatoes, don't take any pepper, any aubergine eggplants, any cabbages or cauliflowers. Now the question might arise, what else can I eat? You can eat chicken peas, lentils, you can eat beef, you can eat mutton, you can eat goat, you can eat good fish,
White beans.
you can eat rice, you can eat beans. So there's plenty to eat, don't worry. Just follow that simple advice for a week, and I can assure you, you will feel a big difference in your energy level. And most people, what she has not experienced, surprisingly, they get serious headaches. So headaches will disappear.
There is a time I can get headache for like 2 days, but sometimes I've never taken caution, maybe to say it's the food.
No, you don't. I know. Nobody does. And do not touch ground nuts or peanuts. You see? See you next time. Thank you very much for watching. Schauffert Andreas, Healthy Through Knowledge.